That was such an insightful session. Welcome to another exciting panel for today. First up, we have Harsh Jain, the CEO and co-founder of Dream Sports. Harsh has transformed Dream Sports into India's leading sports tech company, delighting over 250 million fans with platforms like Dream11 and FanCode. With degrees from University of Pennsylvania and Columbia Business School, he's a tech visionary and a passionate supporter of sports and philanthropy. And guiding our discussion today is our moderator, Professor Harish Bhaskaran from the University of Oxford. Harish is a leading expert in advanced nanotechnology, pioneering research in areas like brain-inspired computing and smart manufacturing. His work is at the forefront of shaping future technologies. Please join me in welcoming Harsh Jain and our moderator, Harish Bhaskaran.
Is on?
Kathy, thank you very much for the great introduction. Harsh, thank you for coming all the way from India.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I know that you've just landed this morning and you're here, so if you do doze off, we will wake you up.
Yeah, the water's here, so you can just splash some.
Great. Thank you very much for braving flight cancellations and coming here. We are delighted to have you here.
Thank you.
And this is a chat, right? So we want to know a lot more about you. And there are a lot of young people who know what you're doing, who probably have heard of your companies. And there are some dinosaurs like me who haven't really gone onto this online gaming mode, right? So if you don't mind, I'd first like to ask you to tell us a little bit about your company, Dream Sports, and what it does, and then we'll go from there. Is that good?
Sure.
Right, thank you.
First of all, I think it's like a very hard act to follow. I think some of those presentation slides were amazing. If you can share the slides, that'd be... I'll just like go through them for the next 10 years of India. But, sorry? Yeah, exactly. So, you know, the last, just how we started and what we do. For Dream11, for those that don't know, we run the world's largest fantasy sports platform. But we're made in India. We're for Indians only. And like Mr. Pai was saying, you know, we kind of don't need the rest of the world's population. We have enough people. And if you solve for India, you pretty much become the world's largest player in that vertical anyways. So Dream11 allows you to create a fantasy sports team. And based on the real life match, your chosen players score based on their real life performance. And then you compete with everyone else to see whose team scored the most points. How many, just by show of hands, how many people here play fantasy sports? All right, most of the people. EPL fans? Okay, Manchester United fans? All right, now we get going.
Yeah, oh, that's fantastic. So in terms of what Dream11 does, so I've seen the brief, and you are the country's first self-made billionaire. And you have a unicorn. Is that right? Or no? You're not? Okay.
No.
Well, great. Then we correct the record. So my brief has been slightly wrong then.
No, it doesn't matter. What matters is, sorry?
Loose change.
No. What matters? I keep saying like we have to focus on creating value, not valuation. Valuation comes and goes, and you know, we have a slight retrospective tax.
Yes.
Great.
Discussion going on.
No, I think, okay, well, then let me ask you another question, right? So you went from having formal education into starting a business and growing it very rapidly into this unicorn, effectively. What was your journey, and what are the difficult parts of that journey?
Sure. So, you know, I started this right after college. So I'm a Bombay boy, born and brought up in Mumbai, and studied at Seven Oaks, actually, Kent, not very far from here. for high school, and that's when my Manchester United, I was a big Manchester United fan in like 95 on, and then 98, 99, obviously we won the treble, and that basically stuck with me for life then. 2001, I came to Sevenoaks, picked up fantasy football, English Premier League. Anyone plays fantasy Premier League? Yeah, there you go. How's your season? Yeah, mine was frustrating this time, but I've been playing for 21 years, and I don't think I'll ever stop. My wife is here. She hates fantasy Premier League and the amount of time I spend on fantasy sports. But, it's one of those things that is just with you forever, right? And then I went to UPenn for engineering, and when I came back in 2007, there was this new concept opening up in India called the Indian Premier League. And I said, we have to play fantasy cricket for it. And when I went and looked up, I know this is probably not the right age demographic, but there was a thing called Super Selector in India. And we went looking up for Super Selector, which was fantasy sports, right product, wrong time. And it didn't exist anymore. So we said, I pitched to my friends, let's put our engineering degrees to some use and launch it. So after they all said no, and after the rest of the world said no, I did it anyways. And then only one of my friends was stupid enough to then join me. And then we basically went on to prove the world right, and it was a horrible idea. And we spent the next 4 or 5 years in blowing up all our money, running a services agency on the side to make ends meet, figuring life out until we pivoted and finally found a model that works. And then we sold the agency after 5 years, went back to Dream11, put that money there. And then during that time, I also went to Columbia Business School, like most of you, except that I was actually going to figure out what is credit and debit, because I was an engineer and I needed to figure this out, and I would go pitching to VCs, right? Like many of you will at some point for ideas. And they would be like, what's your TAM? And I was like, I'll get back to you on that. And then I'd be looking at okay, what is TAM? What is this TAM thing? And so I had to learn a lot about the VC world and how they look at it. And it's important because when you're a builder, you can build, but you also need to build for a commercial purpose as well. They both have to meet. And then in 2014, I had the fortune, after 2 or 3 years of fundraising, getting like 150 rejections over 2-3 years, I had the fortune of meeting Vani Kola from Kalari. She's the only one that actually wrote us the check and believed in us. And then Think Investments followed, and then we raised our Series A, B, C, D. And in the last 10 years, we've scaled from about 200,000 users to about 250 million users today. It's been fun? So, quick summary.
Yeah, no, that's very impressive, right? And obviously, cricket is the religion in India, and it's. I have to say that for the first time this morning before coming here, I logged on to Dream11 and I looked at the website and I was like, maybe I can select a better team anyway.
Yeah. That's exactly what everyone thinks. That's literally the problem, right? If you go to anyone, they'll be like, Rohit Sharma should have just played away from he played away from his body. Virat should have put his head down playing that cover drive, or they shouldn't play Virat and Rohit opening, they should have this combination. Fantasy sports gives you the opportunity to put your money where your mouth is and actually make your own team and show that you know something.
Yeah, no, that's very, very interesting. So in terms of the entrepreneurship journey in India, do you think, perhaps you don't have something to compare it to, or perhaps you do based on your experiences having lived in many places. Is there anything particularly different? Because everything you described to me seems like normal. You have to be flexible in order to pivot. You've got to look at the evidence. You've got to move things as they come along. Is there anything particularly different about doing it in India?
I think it looks the same from the outside. It couldn't be more different, right? I think what I like to call is organized chaos in India, right? Most of you, I see a lot of Desis here. I see a lot of Indians here, I don't know how many of you are, from UK or from India, but if you've driven on Indian roads, right? And if you have a foreigner with you, they feel like every minute their life is in danger. Even in Bombay, even in any metro city as well, right? In the rural parts, it might genuinely be in danger a little bit sometimes. But in the metro cities, you're just driving and the other guy is like there, right? And you're getting to that point until which one of you will give way, but someone will always give way, right? But there aren't accidents, right? If you see the rate of accidents in like metro cities, it's like very, very low in India. So it's organized chaos. It just seems chaotic from the outside, but there's a very, understanding of how the system works. I think, from one of your slides, Mr. Pai, I think it was like the majority of unicorns in the US or like the top tech companies are led by Indians, and the majority of unicorns are non-American, right? They're migrants. Just think about it. Take the top 100, the 100 unicorns in India. How many of them have a non-Indian founder? Zero. Not one. There was one guy, I think Greg, from Zoomcar, and I think he zoomed away. I just, the unfortunate truth is that India has a very specific DNA and culture that requires you to be much more agile and understand the hurdles and the imperfect balance that we have, and that is your biggest competitive advantage. For any of you, right, if you're looking to start up something in the UK, in the US, the number of problems that you have to solve in an advanced economy, mature economy, are limited. The amount of opportunity you have in India is unlimited. I mean, take up, our population used to be our greatest disadvantage. It is today our greatest strength. Our problems were a disadvantage. Today we have, in the last 10 years, I think it's gone from like 5 unicorns to 100 unicorns. The government is, throwing its weight behind Digital India, saying that $1 trillion digital economy, we're going to make it $10 trillion, like Mr. Pai said. We have 100 unicorns coming out. We have Digital India. We have the government leading its way with UPI. When I was in the UK, this is 20 years ago, the financial system in the UK of sending money was light years ahead when I was in the UK and US from India, right? We used to actually write checks, right? And used to go to the bank and deposit it. And today, we are so far ahead of the rest of the world. And thank you, Mr., for that. It's been, the finance department, the government has led from the front. UPI is something that we're exporting. We honestly laugh. I honestly laugh at a bunch of American friends who now say that if I have to send someone money, I have to go and send it and it'll come to you tomorrow. I'm like, dude, I'll just tap a button and it's in your bank account already in India. So I think the opportunity in India is just unbelievable. Please come to India and set up shop and chase your entrepreneurial vision. You have an amazing competitive advantage that a foreigner does not have.
Great. I mean, that's very positive. Let me ask you a related question, right? A lot of immigrants actually succeed setting up companies. In fact, their success rate on an average is 3 or 4 times, I don't remember the statistics, as much as a native person in most of the other countries.
Yeah.
What if India opens up its doors to immigration for people to come in and set up shop? Do you think the success rate would be higher, not lower? Because they don't have to come from organized countries. They can come from other countries with a lot of organized chaos, right?
I think India's doors are open. We're not, our doors have never been closed. Our doors are always open. I just think that Indians will beat them, right? Like, we're going to different countries and we're taking up like 50% of the world's largest tech companies are led by Indians. I think that our doors have always been open and immigrants are coming and setting up, but it is very difficult to understand the diversity and the needs of a population of 1.5 billion people unless you've been in India for a while, it's difficult to imagine products which can both serve 1.5 billion people, yet require micro-adaptation in different states and different markets, and to work with different state governments and the central government. It requires a certain finesse to do that in India.
Absolutely. I often tell my friends that I don't need to understand a language to go into a country. I can communicate with sign language without knowing sign language.
Well,
Let
in
me
India,
do that,
you
yeah.
can communicate with numbers,
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
numbers, Bollywood, cricket, it's like...
Yeah, it's great. So, I mean, I'm going to ask you a slightly difficult question, right?
Sure.
So governments actually, encourage enterprise because it creates value for the economy and overall increases the wealth of the country and the well-being of its citizens. So your company obviously has, it's legally not a gambling company, but effectively it has some elements of that within the company. So are you concerned about the ethical implications of your company's progress, and do you see how it actually creates value for the economy overall?
Sure. Look, I think it's an important question. When we started our fantasy sports in India, like I said, we were emulating the West. So we're looking at Fantasy Premier League and Yahoo and ESPN, and we started free to play. And we ran that for 5 years very unsuccessfully. And then we realized, it's not that we want people to put money, it's the thrill that comes with putting a little bit of money. And that's why we've also carefully devised our entire system to make sure it's not all about the money. So out of 250 million people, only about 20% of them play with money. 80% don't play with money. Out of the 20% people that do play with money, the average transaction size of a user is 63 rupees, right? It's like half a quid, right? It's irrelevant, but the adrenaline rush it gives you to have put some money there, it's not about the money, it's about the fact that you've put something and can win some money back. That creates the engagement loop that is required to engage more in sports. I can truly say that because of that, we've been able to have this massive scale of users, because obviously people have ambitions and people have this want to break out. And we've seen 72% of our users are not from tier 1 and 2 cities. The 100 cities that basically everyone here would have been to in India, only 28% of our users come from there. So India, this is really a product for Bharat. And that's something that they want. Now, if you take all our users, we make sure we keep this very much in mind, because this is something that's very important to us. 99.2%, I think, of our users have never won or lost more than 10,000 rupees in the entire lifetime of playing on Dream11. It's not about winning large or small. It's not about losing large or winning large. It's about the engagement loop that it creates that makes you want to follow that match. If there was like a match, let's say India-Pakistan, for argument's sake, and India's winning the match, and let's say India scores 200 in a T20 and Pakistan scores, they're like 100 for 9 wickets in the 19th over, right? Obviously, everyone has switched off their TV. We've already won, right? The fantasy user isn't going to stop watching, because every ball, that last ball, the one run, the dot ball, the wicket, changes the leaderboard, and that changes their outcome. So we've successfully had a massive increase in viewership of sports, and more importantly, the long tail of sports. Our problem in India is that our sports in India is actually just one sport. And within that one sport, it's also just like Indian men's cricket at the highest level. So BCCI, Indian men's cricket, and IPL is the gold standard of sport globally, right? Some of the biggest broadcast revenues, some of the best quality of sport. But if you go and see, there's a bunch of sports fans here. I'm sure there's a bunch of cricket fans. Where do you watch Ranji in India? We don't know. Hotstar has only like 5% of the Ranji matches, you're right. They have the rights, and they still show only a fraction of the Ranji matches. If you ask someone in the US, where do you watch NCAA, or if you ask someone in the UK, where do you watch championship football, not even Premier League, the championship, they all have an answer if they watch it. So we need to evolve, and fantasy sports helps that. Fantasy sports makes it personal. When you make a team for a Ranji match, you are going to know the player, you're going to watch the match, and you're going to increase engagement with the sport.
No, that's very considered. So it also presents challenges, right? I mean, not particularly for your company, but in terms of if you look at global investments, and Oxford, of course, we have a mandate to invest only ethically.
Yes.
How do you go about setting a business that has some oversight over whether it's ethical or not, so that, you know, just purely from a capitalist perspective, if you want external investment,
Absolutely.
This is becoming more and more important, right?
Yeah, I think it's very important that here's where the government can really help us, and we've been asking for this, and hopefully we should get it soon, is that we love to have regulations come in more and more, right? We want the government to come, and I know this is quite contrary to most industries which, you know, want to shy away from regulations, but I think it's important to address this head on and say, look, we want regulations to come in because we want to work with the government on saying that this is supposed to be for sports engagement. It's not supposed to be this win big, lose big kind of like high risk, high reward outcome. Because of our scale, we can offer extremely low risk with extremely high reward. We welcome regulations for the government to actually say that, look, these are games which qualify as games of skill, and these are not. And this is how we'll protect the consumer. It's very important for us to look at the West, which have decades of experience of responsible gaming, and say, how do we make sure that we cover addiction? We make sure under 18 are never playing. We make sure that there's psychological help for anyone that needs it. Anything in the world, anything is going to be abused, right? I think you covered that. India is no different. If you have FMCG, right? I'm not taking a pot shot at any industry, but I'm saying if you have snacks, people are going to binge eat on some, unhealthy snacks and get obese and have health issues. If you have movies, people are going to Netflix and chill all day and all night. Someone's going to keep abusing. 1% of people will keep abusing. You try to cover for them, but 99% of the people will take society forward in a way that you can't imagine.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to take that head on and create regulations that help us push the country forward with the 99% and help the 1%.
Great. I think that's good. I think the flip side of regulation, of course, is it raises the bar for anyone to enter the fray in terms of being able to start a company, right?
Yeah, it depends on the regulation.
Yes.
Either it can open up the whole sector, or it can close and make it harder even for the incumbents. Yeah. But I agree with you, yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting. And in terms of, let's say you have, a bunch of students here, and many of them might have ambitions of starting a company in India, and they may have many ideas, and they don't know which ones to actually suss out in the Indian context. What advice do you have for them?
How many people here, this is like a business school, right? So how many people here have ideas that they'd like to work on? All right. You've got a great investor pitch here.
We are not letting him out, by the way.
Yeah.
So
how many of you that raised your hands have you think there's a big market that you're going after? Half or more than half. I'll just ask you to consider one thing, right? Think if your idea is a vitamin or a painkiller, right? And just think about the fact that if your user or customer starts using your product and then one day wakes up and doesn't have it, are they going to have a nervous breakdown, and can they not live their life without that? Or is it going to be something that's good, that's an opportunity, that's great, but if they don't have it, it's okay, right? And I would strongly encourage you to work on problems, right? Please don't work on AI because it's Gen AI, and sorry to refute that, but everyone has to say Gen AI somewhere in their pitch deck. But please don't work on Gen AI because it's an opportunity. I think I think if you work on the biggest problems, they will create the largest opportunities. If you work on the largest opportunities, you will end up with a problem. Because what happens is that you just chase an opportunity today. There's going to be someone who is deeply passionate about that as a problem, who's going to outmaneuver you, outdo you, and every industry goes through highs and lows. There is no industry which is an exception to that rule. And when it hits that low, all the opportunists will run to the next opportunity. And all the people chasing that problem are going to stay there and then ride that wave back up. And that's really when you create large outcomes. So I'll just say, anyone here with an idea, please make sure you're chasing a problem that you care deeply about, that you're willing to give at least 5 years of your life to figure out whether it works or not, where it's a very personal problem for you, has a large market if it works, because large markets are unforgiving, right? Small markets are unforgiving. When you have a small TAM, the reason why most VCs say TAM, total addressable market, is because if it's a small market, you're going to mess it up when you start. That's the one thing I can guarantee you. When you start something, whatever you have decided is a business model and the product will not survive user interaction. It will adapt, it will change, and you have to make sure it's a large enough market so that by the time you change and pivot, you haven't run out of customers. So that's the biggest advice I would say, is that just be super passionate, give it 5 years. A big problem, which is a painkiller, not a vitamin.
Great. When you said small TAM, I'm a Tamilian, I was like, anyway.
If it solves for the Tamilian population also, it's like, it's a big TAM.
And even when it comes to fantasy cricket, we are not Mumbai Indians, Chennai Super Kings, we trust Dhoni and go with it, right?
When it comes to, when you said Dhoni, that I can't say anything. He was also a brand ambassador for the longest time and just, fine. But Dhoni's retiring soon. Yeah. And then what happens to Chennai? There's a difference. Sachin retired. Yeah. And Mumbai fans are Mumbai Indian fans. Chennai fans are Dhoni fans.
Yeah. I'm going to grow beyond this. I'm going to move this conversation forward. Yeah. This is personal. One of the things you said, the advice you gave was address a big problem. But my observation is you actually addressed a passion in terms of Dream11, because you had an idea and it was your passion. And if you had looked at the TAM at that point, it would have been zero, because no one would know what the total addressable market is, right? So how do you balance that? How do you balance the passion versus the total addressable market?
Honestly, you can't. When most disruptive businesses are disruptive because nobody believes in them, right? If you look at Uber, people laughed off Travis about it. If you looked at Airbnb, it was literally like putting an air mattress in someone's home. Who thought you'd live in someone else's house, some random stranger's house? Nobody. Most of the new disruptive industries are actually laughed at initially, but you just have to know whether you're solving a problem and something you're passionate about. Like I said, this is one thing that I can tell you, is that it took us 10 years just to get to basic, people to know what Dream11 even is. And that's the story behind most of the larger companies, right? The last 5 years where they've scaled and hyperscaled. You don't see the 10 years of really tough times that have gone behind that. And I think it's also important to have a family that supports you then, right? I was very fortunate to be born with a silver spoon, so I didn't have to worry about, I had a big advantage, which was that I could start something and not have to worry about my next paycheck. Not have to worry will I be able to get a salary, food, a house to stay in. And I took advantage of that and went to try to disrupt something without that much fear. But it also meant, on the negative side, is that I had to create a very large outcome, otherwise it didn't matter. So, when I raised my Series A, 8 years into the company, I raised a Series A, and I would meet people, and they would say, so, oh, wow, you raised a Series A, great, great. So, like, when are you joining Dad? Right? And then Series B, same question, when are you joining your dad? Right? And Series C, when we became a $100 million company, it was the first time people were like, what do you do again? Right? So that's the downside. But look, I have my wife here as well. She joined me sitting in the parking lot for 150 pitches in Silicon Valley, in the alley, in Bangalore, in Delhi, in Bombay, over 3 years. And I really think that we do underrate the importance of family and friends network who push you to actually like continue chasing your dream. And I think that's very, very important in your journey.
That's very well said. I mean, you need hustle and you need family,
Yes,
irrespective
absolutely.
of, yeah, very nice. Do you have any final words for the audience?
So, yeah, I know it's been a long day. Any questions if they have?
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
happy to answer.
Afterwards, any questions? I'll start with you.
Thank you. So, I'm 18 and I tried raising capital even after having an MVP when I was 16 from Antlo. I had conversations when they realized that I'm actually 16. Sorry, thank you. First thing they said is, come back 10 years down the line after you failed a couple of times.
Yeah.
How do you address that? Like, I know that there are most entrepreneurs that make it big or have failed startups before, but for every one of those, there's also Mark Zuckerberg who made it big his first time, right? How do you go out and raise capital when you have a product, when you know your TAM SAM model, you've modeled it out, you know there's a market, you know it's been done before? How do you raise capital at that point? Simply because you're young and people don't believe in you.
So I would just say that, first of all, I'll take 2-3 points. First of all, you're lucky that someone told you no and didn't say, this is interesting, come back to us. We'll get back to you. Because that's usually the polite way of saying no and they just keep you waiting. Nobody wants to say no because they don't want to be that guy who said no to Mark Zuckerberg when he was raising money. Second point, that wasn't Mark Zuckerberg's first stint at the rodeo. He had a couple of things before that. And usually with entrepreneurs, you don't hear about the stuff that went wrong. You just hear about the stuff that went right, obviously. But I would say that just keep at it, right? Like, you have to believe that this is something that works. You can't run a business if it is solely reliant on raising money. If it's so reliant on raising money, then you're dead anyways. Because even if you get a deal, it's going to be a crappy deal. Because, I mean, VCs are sharks, right? Like, they have to be. And so they can smell the blood the minute there is some. You have to be able to then figure it out. Like, we failed when we had to raise money. Then we built a services business. Then we learned how to make money. Then we put that money until it was self-reliant. Then we continued. It's just a grind. Just yeah.
What if somebody does it before you, then?
It doesn't matter. Snapchat launched stories. Who cares? Insta stories is like way larger than it. Literally, the idea. The one thing I'd like to say, I see a lot of business students sometimes come around and say, I've got this idea, but I need you to sign an NDA, right? First of all, you are never going to be able to follow up on that NDA if it actually comes true. Which lawyer is going to be able to prove that that NDA was the reason why someone launched your idea? Secondly, there is nothing, the ideas don't matter, right? For 99.9% of the cases, ideas don't matter. For 0.1% of the case, you'll patent it, right? So it doesn't matter either ways. Just execute. All that matters is execution. Look at the 100 unicorns in India. You guys know most of the unicorns in India. Can you name me one original idea? One. There we go.
I love that. So there was one, you in this, yeah. Yes, you.
Hi. What are your thoughts on opinions trading in India, where it is right now and where it will go in the future?
So I'll give you a personal and professional kind of view. I think it mimics gambling, right? But it's not my call, which is why I hope that regulations come in and the government does decide that here's the Lakshman Rekha, here's what is allowed and isn't allowed, I think opinion trading, like I'm talking about Probo, etc., I think it mimics gambling because you are actually betting on the outcome of an event. So well, we're sitting at Oxford, but like by the Oxford Dictionary, which is what most people say, I think the Oxford Dictionary defines gambling as betting on the outcome of an event. And that's why fantasy sports is okay, because when the Supreme Court of India looked at it, fantasy sports requires you to put the points of every individual player's performance and doesn't allow you to bet on either an individual player's performance, nor does it allow you to bet on the outcome of an event like India winning or Pakistan winning. Instead, you can competitively beat someone based on the points accumulation that you score. And so that's a very big difference. In opinion trading, you are literally betting on the outcome of an event, which is the literal definition of gambling. So I hope that helps. Sure.
So I see a bunch of startups coming up where they're literally going around this by making it a set. So for example, instead of a yes or a no or how many number of views for a YouTuber, they make it a set of 5 YouTube videos, and then that's your fantasy league of YouTube videos. So I see many mechanisms of going around that law that you just explained. How do you think if someone has an idea in that space, how would they go about navigating the legal area around this?
You don't. You get a law firm to give an opinion. You get a top-tier law firm. If they say yes or no, you have your answer, and then you can get to the races and get going. But I think the government is looking to regulate the space very soon, and they will give a line of what is okay and isn't okay. Nobody can answer yes or no for that question.
Yeah, you're in the center out there. Hi.
Two questions.
Yeah.
First, are you happy about 10 hours staying back?
100%.
Second question, so you created an industry, right? And when you do that, eventually it gets commoditized. And your industry rightfully has gotten commoditized. After you came about, there are N number of 11 circles that have come about.
440 from our last
every
count.
IPL season we get another sponsor on Sports Tuck.
Yeah.
So how do you, as a founder, look to innovate, and how do you see Dream11 still being at the forefront of this industry? Is it just the first mover advantage because you're an industry creator, or do you need to again pivot in some form or innovate or disrupt in another way to be at it?
Yeah, it's a great question actually, and something that we struggle with every day is that we need to make sure innovation is again not just for the sake of innovation, right? Otherwise you get, there are some formats in cricket that I won't talk about given the country in which we're in, which is innovation for the sake of innovation, maybe, right?
Hundreds.
I didn't say that. But, jokes apart, I think the point is that sometimes innovation is not just about product innovation. Innovation is about distribution, innovation is about marketing, innovation is in product, innovation is about the culture you create, innovation is about the regulations that you help shape, right? So while you're growing, you don't have to just keep innovating. If something is working, just double down, triple down, 10x on it and scale, right? Like everyone uses WhatsApp. Can you name me the largest innovation that's worked on WhatsApp in the last 5 years? But you still use it, you still love it, right? Because WhatsApp's focus is timely message sending. I think the largest innovation was like groups, like I don't know, 10 years ago. They don't have to innovate, right? Most large-scale products. So our innovation today comes from solving sports problems in India. Dream11 is fantasy sports, but India has a ginormous amount of sports problems. We don't know where to watch the Ranji matches, Syed Mushtaq Ali, Kabaddi, football, hockey, basketball. Can you believe that golf, which has a huge ARPU population, right? Like very high disposable income population in India, even though it's small, in India, small is like 1 million people, right? It's only 1 million people who will pay like ₹1 million each if they are given it. They can't watch golf. we don't air golf in India. Not on TV, not on digital, which is crazy. If you have to go for a sports event, nobody knows where to buy like tickets and experiences from. Like if I wanted to go for a Manchester United match, I'll have to buy it on some StubHub or, I don't know where I'll buy it from. These are the innovations we are working on. We have Fan Code, which does long-tail sports streaming. That's something we incubated. They have 70 million users in India. We have DreamSet Go, which helps sports fans travel and ensures the highest quality of tickets and experiences around the globe. Like for example, if people are going to Olympics in July in Paris, we hold the rights for India exclusively. We have a play in esports, we have a play in fitness, we have a play in playing sports offline. It is very important to get our kids off their phones, right? While we still want people to play on Dream11, our engagement on the phone is very limited. Make your team and get out. Follow the match. Watch sports. Be with your friends. Go play sports in real life. You can't be stuck to the screen the whole day. Like, that's not what we want. So innovations, sorry to have a long-winded answer, but innovations don't have to be within your product. It can be in other parts of your company. It can be in expanding the different digital products you offer outside Dream11 as well.
Thank you. I think the organizers have told me we are time out, so hold your questions, and I'm sure yours around later. Thank you very much.